Hello, everybody. My name is Khaled Siddiqui, and today I'm here to tell you the story of America. How America originated, who we are, where did we come from, and how we got into this big melting pot of different cultures, religions, societies that came together for a better life. This was the great land of America before humanity set foot on this great land. This is the indigenous Americans who came to this country, and nobody knows the exact date of their arrival. So these people were here before anybody else. And from here we have Asia, we have Europe, we have Africa, we have South America, we have Australia, and all different continents. Okay, so let's say people came from Asia. Doesn't mean which color I assigned. It's just an example. People from Asia came to America. People from Africa came to America, or they were forced to come to America. People from South America came to America. No. Let's say from, Middle East and Far East and Australia. You name it. Doesn't matter if I said the colors differently, but these are the people who came to America from different continents, with going through lots of hardships for a better life for them and their future generations. They took a lot of risks. A lot of them died. A lot of them had to fight wars to make it to America. It wasn't an easy achievement to create a new life in a new land. There are all kinds of obstacles and challenges that each one of the generations had to go through to make it to America. Once we are in America, each one of these groups of people have their own different cultures, traditions, religions, and customs. However, when they came to the great nation of the United States of America, this is where they all melted together. So I'm going to demonstrate it with a heat gun. This is not your average hairdryer, so be careful. Don't do this at home. Notice, I didn't melt everything. I let some colors stand out and show its colors, because melting together in America as one nation takes years and years and years. And still, you will have separate groups of people who came from different countries, that some stick together, some have their own traditions, cultures, religion, and all that. Now the question is this good for cultures not to integrate and mix together and stay separated? Or is it bad? The answer to the question is, it is much better to have some variety than it is not to have that variety. Remember, America is one of the only countries in the world that you could go, drive 10 minutes and you could go to Chinatown. Drive another 10 minutes and you could go to Little Italy. Example is in San Diego. In San Diego, if you drive a little 10 more minutes or maybe 5 minutes, you go to Old Town. You have Mexican heritage, Mexican food, Mexican culture. You go to Little Italy, you have Italian food, Italian heritage, the whole, setup, the shops, the looks, everything looks Italian. The aesthetic is Italian. Same thing if you go to Chinatown, you have Vietnamese markets, you have Middle Eastern markets. If you go to a few miles north, you have Indian bazaar and you have Indian restaurants. This is our power. Our diversity is our power. We shouldn't discriminate each other based on these things. Now, here's something that you need to keep in mind. Each American parent that migrated to this country, or I should say each immigrant parent that migrated to this country, they left behind a lot of their privileges in their own countries. A lot of those people left behind their properties, their land, their homes. They had good jobs, some of them. They left it behind and came to America for a better life for their children, for you. If you're a child of an immigrant, they did the sacrifices for you so you could have a better life. For you, it is required to respect them in return and understand their culture, their traditions, their customs and everything, their religion, their nationality, where they came from. You need to respect that. Being a child of an immigrant in America, don't be ashamed of the customs and traditions of parents. For example, if you're a child of a Muslim parents and your mom is wearing a scarf, don't be ashamed in front of your friends or your classmates if your mom comes to pick you up from school. If you're a child of a Jewish immigrant and your father wears jamaka, don't be ashamed of that. Be proud of your father, who gave everything to come to America for a better life for you. Each country, if you're an Indian, you're from immigrant, and you're child of an Indian immigrant whose father is from Sikh religion and is wearing the turban, don't be ashamed of that. Be proud of your heritage. Be proud of your traditions and customs. Now, this doesn't mean that you don't welcome new traditions and customs. You have to have your arms open and accept other people's cultures and traditions. But don't be embarrassed or ashamed of your own. Remember this. St. Patrick's Day came from Scotland. That tradition was transferred to the United States of America and people are proud of it. I wear green on St. Patrick's Day and I'm not even European, let alone from Scotland. Christmas came from Christianity, from European and Middle Eastern area. I'm not a Christian, but I send Christmas cards to my friends. I accepted that culture. Same thing with Hanukkah. I say Happy Hanukkah to my Jewish friends. I have no problem with that. or Happy Eid to my Muslim friends. You have to realize this, that your heritage is something to be proud of, and don't confuse your heritage with actions of hate committed or crimes committed by a few groups of few people in your motherland. Example, if you're a German American, you are not responsible for the atrocities Hitler committed. If you're a Muslim American, you're not responsible for what ISIS is doing. If you're Brazilian American, you're not responsible for what the drug lords are doing in Brazil. Same thing with Mexican American. We have criminals in every country. You are not responsible for their crimes to be ashamed of your heritage because what is on the news that day. If you hear in the news that there was a drug bust from the border of Texas coming from Mexico, this doesn't mean that Mexican Americans are now supposed to be ashamed of that. No. Each individual should be judged for their contents of their characters, not for the crimes committed by others of their same nationality or same religion or same language or same race. If you're an African American, don't be embarrassed if a black person commits a crime or commits an act of genocide. If you're a white American and a white kid goes and does a mass shooting, don't be guilty because of that. Now, talking about atrocities committed by previous generations, this is where you need to draw a line between criminal activity and heritage. I went to Germany more than a dozen times. I did not see a statue of Hitler or his supporters. Germany has nothing to do, they don't want to do anything with Hitler's crimes or atrocities or celebrate him or call Hitler as their heritage. They don't. That's why when you see protesters are destroying Robert E. Lee's or other slave owners' statues, don't claim that as your heritage, because that was an individual criminal who committed acts of war hate and committed war crimes. A war criminal shouldn't be considered as your heritage. That's the same as a person creating Osama bin Laden's statue as a heritage, or creating a statue of Hitler or other, you name it. There's no shortage of criminals in every race. We have criminals like Genghis Khan who came and killed a lot of people throughout the Middle East and Far East and Asia. And we had all kinds of gangs and criminals commit crimes worldwide. They shouldn't be associated with your Americans who have already melted in the melting pot. This melting pot is America. Each individual person was an immigrant from a different country, other than the indigenous people whose arrival is unknown to the modern history. So each individual person came from a different country, and they should not be demonized for criminal acts of their governments of their country of origin. Now, governments, for example, here's an example for Iranian Americans. Iranian Americans are just as American as anybody else. Pakistani Americans are just as American as anybody else. Now, if the Pakistani government or Iranian government is committing a war crime, you don't demonize these innocent people who came here. Remember the sheer fact that they escaped that country, that's because they did not agree with the policies of that particular country. So they came to America for a better life. They didn't come to America to be discriminated against. Remember, respect and kindness is contagious. If you give respect and kindness to others, you shall receive respect and kindness from others. Now, if you are a child of an immigrant parent and you're going to acquiring higher education and knowledge in America, don't make fun or look down to the traditions and customs of the country of your origin, because some of those traditions may have some type of a wisdom behind it. Wisdom does not come from knowledge and education alone, because you could be a narrow-minded doctor, you could be a narrow-minded engineer. Why do you think when you go to school trying to study medicine, you also have to take art classes, you have to take history classes, you have to take English classes? You're like, wait a minute, I want to be a doctor. Why am I have to be subjected with all these different subjects? I don't have time for that. Well, guess what? A narrow-minded doctor is the worst doctor. A doctor is a good doctor who knows about culture, who knows about traditions of different countries, who knows a little bit about geography of the planet, who knows a little bit about chemistry, biology, who knows about animals, who knows about humans, who knows about all kinds of different religions. That is a wise doctor, not a narrow-minded doctor. So if your parents or immigrant parents are telling you to do this or don't do this based on their traditions, don't get offended, because it takes hundreds of years to completely melt. Remember this? It's very difficult, hundreds of years to melt and become same color. Is it good to become same color? No. Like I say, diversity is our power. We should have diversity. We should have different cultures and traditions in our country. That's what makes America beautiful and unique. Like a garden of different flowers, of different color roses. Not all red or all blue or all orange. Different colors, variety. Same thing with different types of food, like I mentioned earlier. And this is the country where you can find every type of food. Indian food, Pakistani food, Russian food, French food. There's a restaurant out there that serves that kind of food. That's what we need to realize. And the same thing is with race. Each race should be equally respected and not discriminated against or demonized, or think of that person as lower than yourself. Because we are all humans. We are all even. We are all the same. Remember this, if you're a child of an immigrant, your parents went through a lot of hell to come to America. It's not easy to come to America. There are countries that you have to wait for hours in lines just to get to the door of the US consulate or embassy. I came to America, and at the embassy in Islamabad, I was waiting for hours just to reach the front gate, and guess what? When it would be my turn, it would be business hours would be closed, and I had to come another day. At 100 degrees heat, I had to stand in that line. So the ease and the comfort and the luxury life of American dream that my children are seeing, it came at a price. It did not come free. It came at the price of some person who took the initial step, who said, you know what, I'm going to seek a better life for myself and my future generation and my children. And that person or your parents need to be respected. When they come to America, they go through a culture shock. In some countries, people are wearing a scarf. When you come to America, people are literally naked in the beach. Don't expect these people who came from a culture who were wearing scarves to completely embrace and accept their children going in the nude beaches. Okay? Don't expect that. I'm not saying which one is right or which one is wrong. I'm not judging anyone here. I'm not saying the nudist people are bad people. All I'm saying is there is a cultural shock for newcomers who come to this country and migrate to this country, especially those who are first arrivals. In other words, first generation immigrants, not their children. It takes multiple generations to completely melt in this melting pot. Multiple generations for everything to be like basically there's to diminish the cultural shock and everything to make it sound okay. It takes a long time. And a lot of people choose not to lose their culture, which is totally understandable. For example, Scottish men wear skirts. You see here in America, there, especially when there is a funeral, when they're playing the pipe flutes. I don't know what the exact name is, but there's a pipe horn or pipe flute, something like that. When they're playing that, they're wearing skirts. Now imagine the cultural shock one would get if they're coming from, let's say, Middle East or somewhere, and they tell them, you know what, in America I saw men wearing skirts. That is a major cultural shock. That person will not believe his or her eyes when they see. Is that okay for men to wear skirts? Absolutely. It's their culture. That's how they grew up back home, and that's okay with them. Now, to force an immigrant parent, to force them into accepting that culture and forcing them to wearing that skirt is not okay. You need to understand the boundaries and the difficulties that your immigrant parents are going through trying to embrace America. We all want to embrace America. We all want to mix and melt together in this beautiful nation. But it takes time. Don't expect everything to happen overnight. It takes generations and generations. And sometimes, after dozens of generations, cultures don't change. One last thing I want to mention. Criminal activities or bad practices of a culture should not be considered as point of judging all those people from that culture. You understand? For example, here's an example. Back in the old days, they would bury a daughter if they wanted a son. Okay, if the newborn was a girl, they would bury the girl alive or kill the girl because they wanted a son. That was a culture practiced in different areas of the world. It was practiced in Africa and Middle East and Europe. People wanted sons, and they wouldn't, because back then, if you had son, they would go to war and they would work, and they would basically be more power in having a daughter. It would cost you money, or couldn't be as active member of the society. This was back hundreds of years ago. I'm not talking today. Girls and boys, daughters and sons are all equal now. So that old tradition or custom or culture that was practiced by a group of people, those people shouldn't be demonized because hundreds of years ago certain things happened. Same thing with criminal activities, like I mentioned earlier, of one group of people shouldn't be a reason to judge all of them based on that. So respect your elderly, respect your parents, and listen to what they say. They may not have more education than you, but they sure as hell have more experience and wisdom than you. Thank you.